B12 is recommended, probably about 2,500 micrograms of that every week, 250 a day. Also some vitamin D if you're living at this latitude. So there's some recommendations on that too, and you can see me if you'd like a copy of this. I have some in my office. And also some iodine and iron recommendations as well.
And that's an easy change.
So we'll get going as soon as Ken's ready. There's a drawing in the back for a couple books, if you like, and some food. The food that I have for today is a real good low-fat soup that very nutritious. It's I call it taco bean soup, but there's some rice too, so you can put some rice in a bowl. And the recipe is just kind of one that I throw together. It's basically a can of black beans that you don't drain, and then a can of white beans and a can of red beans. Drain both of those. Put in a couple cloves of garlic and an onion and a teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of chili powder, and a pack of frozen corn. And mix it up. Probably about 2 cans of stewed tomatoes and 2 cans of a vegetable broth too. And you get a nice, real quick soup. I made this soup in probably about 20 minutes this morning, so it's a real quick one. Lasts for the whole week for you. And we have a nice green salad, and we'll be talking about some more important things about eating your greens and your cruciferous vegetables, and some of the wonderful things that it can do. I'm obviously biased during my talks toward more of a vegan type of a diet, but one of my goals is just to have people to integrate more vegetables into their diet, and probably less meat, less dairy. And a lot of our studies are really backing that up. We've had these studies for a long period of time now, and that's probably the best way to go for a variety of different reasons. So what I'd like to do is present some of the newest research. This is a doctor that I correspond with, and he actually puts out a DVD presentation. His name's Dr. Greger. What he does is he just looks through studies, and there's studies coming out every single day in different journals, and this is called Latest in Clinical Nutrition. Those studies, he gets those from PubMed.gov, and they're free. Anybody can get these studies, and if you just have the time to go through them, everything that's done is always put onto this site. If you're more interested in going onto his site, all of these are put up there. They're free of charge to take a look at, and if you go on to the Facebook page, he will send you a new one every single day. So you can start off your day with just something that people learned about research and diet, and I do that and change my diet as I learn new things. So last year at this time I probably wasn't eating the same way, just because I learned something about a new vegetable or something else, and I think that is going to be a process that we continue to do as we learn more and more about health. The amount that we know about health is very, very, very small, and I think right now we're just scratching the surface within the last 10, 15 years. We've actually been studying vegetables and all different types of alternative treatments, and in the past we haven't done that because there wasn't money to do research in those areas. You can't make too much money off of spinach, but you can off of a drug, and that's why there's not as much research coming in on these kinds of things. But to look at some more of the research, you can go on to nutritionfacts.org, and that's where you can get these videos from Dr. Greger. And again, if you want the DVDs, I always have those available in my office, and he's up to volume 12 now. His graphics keep getting better too, so They're a little more entertaining, but it is research, so you just have to get through it. Okay, so some of the newer things that we learned. The study that I don't have a slide for was that one that came out 2 days ago. Everybody was talking about it. It was on the Today Show, it was on all the morning news shows, and it featured the Mediterranean diet. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, Mediterranean diet really focuses heavily on fruits and vegetables. They also allow olive oil and fish and nuts in the diet. And one of the things that they were able to do is lower heart attack rates with that by 30%. So it was quite significant. That's why it got all the fanfare and everything. But when it got into the media, the first thing that people were throwing up there is lower your heart attack risk by eating olive oil and nuts. And it's like, wow, you know, that's the effects that they were probably getting were because of the high intake of fruits and vegetables. But they weren't even mentioning that. They were just kind of focusing on the things that people really, really like to eat. And but it is better, and it's a good indicator that you can do some amazing things with diet, especially reducing heart attacks. I might also add that with a vegan diet, just eating vegetables, maybe not too many nuts, no oils and things like that, Dr. Ornish and Dr. McDougall were actually able to reverse heart disease. So that's better than reducing it. We can actually reverse it, and that hasn't ever been done with any type of a drug before. So there's lots of good effects related to heart issues, but this kind of a diet also is very good for cancer. You name it, anything that's out there, and it seems to have a real good effect on that. So some other things that we learned. This one I brought up, and I just always like to start with it because it's a good thing to look at when you're choosing something to drink. A lot of people get a lot of their calories with their drinks, and it's really easy to pop open a Diet Pepsi or a Diet Coke, and because it's available. But if you really want the biggest bang for your buck in terms of antioxidants, you can see they're listed up here. Water is a very good thing to do, but it doesn't have any real nutritional value. It doesn't have any antioxidants. And you keep working your way down here, you can see there's one antioxidant in Red Bull, one in Pepsi and milk, and you kind of work your way down, and you start getting into the coffee and teas that are real high. So that's a real good substitute, something to get into your diet. I've got some hibiscus tea right now, and it's full of antioxidants. There were some studies I'm going to feature in just a little while too. Just really took a look at people when they're actually drinking things like this throughout the whole day. It just spikes up, and your antioxidant levels remain high for the whole day. So it's a good thing to integrate in your diet. Now, the thing about antioxidants, and we'll go over some other foods and things like that that are real high in antioxidants, and especially a lot of fruits and vegetables are very high in antioxidants, meat very low, obviously. But we want to be high in antioxidants because what it does is it protects our cells. And the way that it does that is kind of interesting. If you've ever wondered about this, why don't plants get sunburned? Well, they should, right? Because they're out in the sun all the time. Well, it's because they have a high level of antioxidants in them, and that's why we want to eat plants. And it does the same thing for your body. There was a study done a little while ago about protecting the skin from, actually what they did is they rubbed some broccoli on somebody's skin, and then they did a laser and they burnt them on one side, and they put the broccoli side on, and it actually had lots of protective effects right on the skin. So that's what vegetables do. That's what antioxidants do, and that's why you want to have a very, very high diet in antioxidants. I focused on that a lot last time that I talked, but again, your high antioxidant foods are going to be mostly fruits and vegetables and whole grains and things like that. So So that's what we want to do. You know, if you're going to put something in your diet, make sure that it has some good nutritional value and it is very high in antioxidants. Okay, some other thing. Soak your nuts. Just for you, Brian. This one's kind of an interesting one. I did some research related to grains and just about every kind of grain was on alfalfa seeds, almonds, peanuts, garbanzo beans, millet, lentils, peas, pinto beans, quinoa, spelt, walnuts, wild rice, and there's kind of a different soak time for all of these. But usually, you know, you probably want to go between 6 and 12 hours on some of this stuff. And what happens, what we found, is that when you get one of these grains or these legumes, that, you know, what they are, it's a seed. So when you have that seed, there has to be some protection around it. And Mother Nature wrapped it up in some cellophane here and until it was ready to sprout. And so it has that protection, but that protection, when you eat it, it actually impedes your body from being able to absorb it. So once you soak it, it's just like Mother Nature, you know, raining on it and getting it ready to sprout. And then all of those protective enzymes from that nut or seed, they go away. And some of those things that go away are those enzyme inhibitors. They get neutralized. And the amount of vitamins in your body, obviously you can absorb that more. The gluten breaks down so that your digestion is a lot easier. And that phytic acid, which inhibits absorption of the vital minerals, is reduced. So your body can really go at it. So it's better to do that. I've been trying that. It's, you know, if you get a whole thing of raw nuts and you soak them for a while, the only thing is drying them out again. You know, I was sticking them in the oven and doing that. And they dry out pretty fast that way, but it's sort of a different approach to this, you know. And one of the things that we have to be really careful about too, if you eat a lot of nuts, you can get a lot of calories and you get a lot of fat, really, really fast. So you want to limit yourself to that. And 3-4 nuts a day is probably enough. You're getting enough fat into your body. That's about all that you really need. So the way that we eat nuts usually is, you know, a handful at a time, and that's just probably a habit that you don't want to get into. Same way with dried fruit. You really have to watch dried fruit because you can eat so much of it, and you can have a bowl of it and just go crazy on it, even though it's very good for you and has a lot of good vitamins and phytonutrients in it. It's just really easy to go crazy on that kind of stuff. Other things that we learned. We learned a lot of stuff. There were a lot of studies that came out during the last 6 months related to fibromyalgia, and if you suffer from this or know of somebody who suffers from it, there were about 5 studies, and they looked at vegetarian diets. We found out overall they can reduce the symptoms of fibromyalgia. In one of the studies, the pain status dropped, and 7 out of 10 felt better, and that's pretty significant when you're running a study. It had some real wonderful effects, and in this particular study, the longer the study went on, the fewer pain symptoms the individuals had. And we have never had a treatment for fibromyalgia before, and this is the first time we've really made some gains with that. This study, just changing diet, was actually 3 times better than the study that they're working on at Mayo right now, as far as reducing pain for these individuals. So it's very significant. It should be noted too that when patients switch back to the omnivore diet, the symptoms returned pretty soon. Mostly vegetarian diets were also tried in this study, including that Mediterranean diet that we talked about, which was high in fat, and there wasn't any significant improvement on that. So going with a straight vegetarian, vegan type of a diet, probably more vegan than vegetarian, because they really cut out the dairy in those diets, and it was a low fat, worked very good. Found out a lot of stuff too with with fried meat and boiled meat, a lot of studies that come out right now have to do with breast cancer, because breast cancer is well funded. There's a lot of money going into that, so we can look at that, and we can look at cancer in general from that kind of research. This one happened to be on fried meat, and I've got broiled meat on there too. But we found out that this study was done a while back in Finland. They found just the relationship between breast cancer and high meat intake. But that was a lot of that was related to the inflammation too that occurs when people ingest meat. They also really focus on this study on a mutagen that's actually found in meat. When you cook mammals, basically at a higher temperature, you get this mutagen. It's called FIT, and it's found in cooked meats, poultry, fish, and cigarette smoke. So they had to design studies around that too. If a person was vegan but smoked, you're still going to have that FIT chemical in your body. So the FIT caused DNA mutations, increased breast tumor growth, and promoted cancer invasion of other cells. Now this is very significant because we've never been able to show this with a study before. We've known that there's been associations before, just like in the Finland study with breast cancer meat intake. But we were actually able to take one of the mutagens and link it to tumor growth. And then we also found out that it promoted invasion of other cells. So that's significant, because if you just have some tumor growth, big deal. It's in one part of your body. It's not going to be life-threatening. But we were able to find in this study and watch as it invaded other cells, and actually it's something you don't want to happen. We were able to. This was a very, very low concentrations of this chemical, of this mutagen, this FIT that was found in meat. Well, we found that it was cooking muscle at high temperatures created these hydrocarbons, which were also associated with an aggressive rate of prostate cancer. So again, they looked at breast tissue, prostate cancer, and found out that it was related to that. The temperature didn't have to be real high for chicken, about 350 degrees, only for 15 minutes before it created these high amounts of these mutagens in the body. So again, when we talk about things like this, we're talking about carcinogens, mutagens, things that really mess up your DNA, and that's where cancer comes from, when you're doing things like that. When we talk about antioxidants, those are the things that protect you against that. So more antioxidants, the more protection that you're going to have from diseases like cancer. So other things that we learned, cooked meat. We know that it was also recently associated with kidney cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer, and pancreatic cancer. The last one is one you want to stay away from. Meats with the highest amount of these potent mutagens included fried bacon and fish, which was real interesting because, and again, this is an accumulation of studies. There's about 4 or 5 studies in here. But they also found that eating it, you were able to get these mutagens, but breathing it was just as bad. If you're around grilled food, if you're grilling out a lot. But in one study, they took a look at cancer rates in kids who lived by restaurants that were grilling foods, okay? And it was much higher. They recommended no more than one day a month being near these places that are grilling these kinds of foods, because it gets airborne and you breathe it in, these carcinogens. So you want to stay away from that sort of thing. The worst offenders were Chinese restaurants, where they figured they were frying fish a lot, and it was just coming out. And you're walking down the street, it all smells great and everything. You probably shouldn't be breathing that stuff in, So something that I learned. In the study, the chicken without the skin actually had higher mutagen levels than the chicken with the skin, because it had a protective effect on it when it was cooking. women who consume meat that was well done, and this is, again, another study, had a 5 times greater cancer risk than people who ate medium or medium rare. So again, the more that you're grilling this stuff, the more carcinogens that are in it. And sometimes you can even see those carcinogens because it's that charred material. You don't want to eat that kind of stuff. And things that tend to be crunchy or fried a lot, kind of want to stay away from that. They found that boiled meat was the safest if you boil your meat, as long as you don't go above 212 degrees. So one of the things that they also found too is that these FIP levels that you don't want to be high, after 24 hours they were undetectable in the body. So as soon as people quit eating them, they were gone. And we found that too when we measured endotoxins. After people eat meat, their endotoxin levels go up, the toxins that are found in meat, and then they go back down as long as you don't eat any more meat. So it does leave the body pretty fast. Some other things, we had another study where we found out that green tea blended the effects of FIP, and what they did in this study is they took some DNA molecules and they were tightly wound, and kind of, they call it the comet study. So they had this, and then they took some FIP and they dripped it on there, and the comet starts coming apart, and you can see the tail, and again, this is DNA damage. It's damage to the cell. It's something you don't want. So what they did in this study, they found out, can we protect this cell by putting some of these antioxidants on there? So what they did is they exposed it to the FIP, and then they dripped some green tea on it. And the comet tail got smaller and smaller. So there, again, there was some damage from the FIP, but it wasn't as bad. Now, we know that garlic also had that effect, provide some cellular protection there. And we also know that too, if you are eating meat, a good thing to do is to have something there that's going to be high in antioxidants, but something that's going to give you a lot of cellular protection. Broccoli cruciferous were real good at that. So eating that with your meat is a real good thing, and it has protective effects that linger too, and I think that's coming up as well. So again, it brought the DNA damage way down, and that's what you want to do, protect yourself from this. The cruciferous vegetables, we learned some things about those, and for those of you who aren't familiar with that group of vegetables, it's a group of vegetables that we don't focus on a whole lot. You need your green leafies, those are very, very important. You need your allium, which are going to be things like garlic and onions and things like that, but then you need your cruciferous, and the cruciferous include things like cabbage, bok choy, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and actually kale is one. You can get it's a 2-for-1. That counts as a cruciferous and a green leafy. So if you can get that one in there, that's a good way to go. That one's good in soups and stuff like that. That's how I eat it. But again, you can kind of experiment with some of this stuff and find out good ways to ingest it. So we learned that what cruciferous vegetables do is they really supercharge your liver and get it going really fast. So you're eating that, and you want that when you're eating things that maybe aren't so good for you. I'm not telling you to eat things that aren't good for you, but if you do, and you have a side of broccoli, this is what it's going to do, and it really decreases the effects of the carcinogens in your body. So if you're a smoker, you want to eat like tons of broccoli with your cigarettes. They've done studies like that before too. They had smoking gerbils, and they gave acai berries to them to see if it would negate the effects of the cigarette smoke, and it did, but then you have gerbils that are addicted to cigarettes. So we also found out that participants who were doing this needed less coffee to get this caffeine buzz because your liver is working so good right now that you it's hard to stop it up. So even 2 weeks later, the effects from the cruciferous vegetables maintained a protective effect on the body. 2 weeks after eating your broccoli, it's still going to show some effects, some protective effects. So if you can get this into your body once or twice a week, it does a lot. Okay, here's a couple studies on oral and dental health in terms of what you eat and what it does. We know that high saturated fat intake was associated with more periodontal disease. In America, saturated fat comes mostly from dairy, donuts, and chicken. That's what people eat. Foods that are most helpful in preventing oral cancer were green leafy vegetables, citrus fruit, and carrots. And you wouldn't think the citrus fruit would be in there because, you know, we talk about tooth decay and drinking juices, juices are very high with tooth decay, and also eating vegetables is very high with tooth decay too. But they found out in this study that obviously brushing your teeth really helps, but there's an optimal time to brush your teeth. And the time to brush your teeth is actually 30 minutes after you've eaten anything that would have any type of a high acid, including cruciferous vegetables, fruits. And one of the things that will help negate those effects would be swishing with some water and then waiting 30 seconds, because what it does is it softens up the enamel on your tooth. And if you brush right away, it's going to do a lot more damage. So you should wait at least 30 minutes after, preferably an hour, and you will stay away from some of those harmful effects that even the really good foods can have on your teeth. There were some studies done on coconut oil. A lot of people ask me about coconut oil, and is it good for you, is it not? There's a lot of rumors that it's very good for Alzheimer's disease. The only thing about coconut oil is it's very high in fat. So you've got to be real careful. You don't want to do a long-term study because people are having, it's a lot of fat in their diets. You didn't really see a lot of effect on Alzheimer's with the coconut oil. But we do know that it doesn't spike the inflammation like it does with meat. Again, meat will spike inflammation in the body immediately. That's endotoxemia, and it happens within minutes of consuming some type of a meat. And we know that inflammation in your body, something that you don't want, because it's related to all the biggies: cancer, and heart attacks, diabetes, and so we want to keep inflammation down in your body, and that's what vegetables and things that are high in antioxidants will do. So it also worsened bad cholesterol, spiked it up a little bit, but it's probably something that is not something you want to include in your diet, at least not a lot of it. So we had another study. It was related to cats and dogs. Anybody want to know? Good, bad. You hear a lot of good things about the positive effects of having a dog around. Nursing homes have lots of pets these days, especially a dog and things like that. And, a lot of good research on that. So probably real good for you. In this particular study that came out, pets in the home decrease respiratory illness, and possibly, we have one study, possibly the risk of a common cold. And this one was done in kids, and lots of good effects with that. Now, which were better? Dogs won out this year as far as the protective effects. It seemed a little bit higher than cats, although cats were out there too. But if you want an animal for your good health, some type of animal with fur is probably a good thing, and preferably a dog. Study done on gargling too. Not something that we do a lot in this country, but this one was done in Japan, and they found out that actually the simple activity of just gargling with salt water, as your grandmother probably told you, really had a very strong protective effect against the common cold. So and then they experimented with green tea. If you gargle with green tea, it even had more of a protective effect. So this time of the year, if you want to avoid getting sick, just gargling with salt water is a good thing. Well, we also learned, for those of you who are very active, and if you use those sport beans for energy, any of the goos, any of the Gatorade, things like that, things that are designed to get lots of sugar into your body so they have lots of energy, they put all of those up against natural foods such as raisins. And actually they found out with the studies that they had the same effect with oxygen intake and energy production, and really some positive effects there. And overall, people preferred the raisins over the sport beans or any of the other candies that people are out there marketing. So, you know, it just goes to say that, you know, Mother Nature does things for a reason, and most of the time that has just as many protective effects as anything else, and eating whole foods is really the way to go. These things I've gone over in other sessions, but you know, just ways to increase your antioxidants and to sweeten your food. You know, you get into some of them, honey and things like that, but molasses and date sugar are real high because you want to sweeten your food with something that is a whole food. And date sugar is, of course, sometimes when you take maple syrup, you think, oh, it's all natural, but you boil the heck out of it, and it's not the way that it came out of the tree. So that's why we just want to get those antioxidants up in your body. So that's how I have this at least once a week. I make this, and I just keep some in the refrigerator. That's my hibiscus tea recipe, and again, it's probably one of the most healthy things that you can drink. And I always have some in my office. Anybody who ever wants to hit me up for some hibiscus tea, come on in, and I always have some. I usually sip on this stuff all day. But this one was with 8 cups of water, 4 tea bags, and you always just find a tea that has hibiscus as the first ingredient. If you have a hibiscus plant, you can just take the flowers too and grind them up and throw them right in with tea too. You've got hibiscus tea. It's even a better way to do it. Put in a lemon. You can juice some lemon in there, and that we found actually probably increases the good effects of the hibiscus tea. It changes the pH in the water, and actually you'll get more antioxidants in your body if you throw a little bit of lemon in there. And then I've got some artificial sweetener there, which is erythritol, and it's one that has been proven to, at least so far, to not have any harmful effects on the body, but using some of the more natural sweeteners in there, like date sugar and things like that, because they're whole foods, they don't really have a good purpose in a drink. So that's a good recipe there. Again, lemon, you know, and the pH is a real good idea. Actually, cold water was a better way to prepare tea. Cold water steeping than hot water steeping. Just increase the amount of antioxidants if you could drink cold teas. And berries, we learned, you know, this last year's stuff again. We learned that the blackberries were the highest in antioxidants, but they're all very significant, very high. Grapes probably not being as high as some of the others. And with the dried fruit, you know, we saw that you start with your raisins, and then you get into your cherries and your goji berries and pomegranate seeds, and the whortleberries and the gooseberries were just a huge powerhouse. And that usually comes dried, so you can throw that in smoothies or just on top of things. With the soup here, I didn't mention before that the nutritional yeast here, which is a very good substitute for cheese, gives it a real nice cheesy flavor. and it's very, very high in B vitamins. So again, that great study that was done on women with the dried apples, very good for reducing cholesterol. And that was the best of the dried fruits that were even tried in the studies this year too. So, and every time you can throw some good spices and herbs into anything that you're making, it always throws up the antioxidants a lot. So keep doing that. Just some of the comparisons between foods that we normally eat. You got some filet mignon there at 7, and then you can see, you do some blueberries though, and they're 535. So the differences between fruits and vegetables and meat and things, and again, Big Macs and that sort of thing, it's just so different, and the amount of cellular protection that you get from it is just amazing. Try to keep some of the heavy metals out of your diet too, and sometimes you get that in cooking in aluminum vaccines, smoking, you get lots of metals in your body too, so another good reason not to do that. And lots of studies too that have been done lately have to do with mental health and vegetarian diets, and 6, 7 studies that I've looked at really focused on arachidonic acid, which is only found in meat, really having negative effects on mood disorders, depression, and in many studies they were able to clean that up with a mostly vegetarian diet in as little as 2 weeks, and they saw a lot of changes in how a person feels, and real good stuff. Here's one I've been recipe that I eat a lot of this, make my own pudding at night, if I'm really hungry. It's a good little snack, but you get some of those frozen dark cherries in there and throw in some Dutch cocoa powder, which is very high in antioxidants. Throw in some date sugar, and if you want a little soy milk in there too, it just makes a nice little ice cream that you can eat, and just delicious and very, very good for you. If you want to throw tofu in there, you can too. That's a lot of the newest research. I didn't put it all in there, but again, this is always available for you if you want to come down. I get one about every 6 months, but you can subscribe on your own too. It's free, and this guy just goes out there and he just does it for public health, so that people can learn about food, and helps you to grocery shop and just make real good choices. And the whole point here is just to have people feel better. So more food here. Yeah, you're welcome.
So I suppose we're not supposed to roast our kale then, because that defeats the purpose of the kale.
They heated vegetables at high temperatures and even fried them, and they didn't have the same effects that happened when you do that with meat. When you do that with meat, you create those mutagens, and they weren't created with vegetables. Yeah.